viewers, welcome to Everything Electric, another episode on electric vehicles. My guest this evening is someone who's building a neighborhood vehicle, a vehicle which is eight-seater, which has had a swappable battery and comes with a solar roof. Let's understand what is this neighborhood vehicle all about. Welcome to the show, Christy.
Thanks, Major. Thanks for having me.
So it was very interesting when I started going through the SOOORYA, and I believe it is a name named after sun god. When I started researching about it, I realized unlike many other companies and startups who are trying to build two-wheelers, four-wheelers, you are getting into a space which you call as neighborhood vehicle. Do you want to talk about why get into a shared ride segment?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I mean, if you look at transportation, if you look at mobility, you'll find that today already our roads are very congested. And for example, in India, just 2% of the population own personal cars, but there is no space, with just 2% of the population owning personal cars, there's no space on the roads. But mobility, I think, is important. Mobility is required by everyone. Mobility creates opportunities for everyone. And affordable last mile transport is a key for people to be able to use multimodal transport. So instead of having your own personal vehicle, if you're able to get your vehicle from your doorstep to your MRT station or to your bus stop, I think then it would make it more convenient for people to use public transport. So that's the reason why we focused on the last mile mobility or the neighborhood vehicle, because that would help people to have avail of multimodal transport, and not everyone having to own their own personal car or personal two-wheeler. What we have also noticed is because public transport only operates in certain roads, many people who live in interiors away from the main roads, they're forced to have their own two-wheeler or their own car, because they can't go the distance to the main road where the bus stop is. So neighborhood vehicles would be able to kind of, provide transportation from the doorstep, connecting it with metros, connecting it with bus stations. So that's the reason, and it's a huge market, it's a huge opportunity, and that's the reason why we focused on this.
To make these vehicles affordable, you're also proposing the concept of micro factories. Do you want to talk about it? What is this all about?
So if you look at last mile transport, or if you look at affordable mobility, what's very important is that the pricing has to be right. So when we talk about electric vehicles, people are focused on speed, range, and fast charging, which is a requirement of the Western world, of the developed countries. Whereas in a country like India or in other developing countries, the average speed of the vehicle on our roads is very low. It's less than 30 kilometers or 30 to 40 kilometers per hour. So the kind of vehicles that we need, needs to be right size or right purposed for our environment. So when we looked at it, we felt that, having a large battery pack and having a vehicle that can go a long distance is not really required when the traffic is very congested, which is slow, and you don't travel, many kilometers on an average per day. So, and if you look at the fleet segment, I think it's also important that they don't have downtime for charging. So, if you look at, bringing down the cost, one is you can bring down the cost by right sizing the vehicle. The other way is you need to look at manufacturing, because manufacturing also is a major cost of the vehicle. So today, most manufacturers have a large manufacturing plant, which has a huge assembly line. And this was built in an era when everything was manufactured within the factory. But over a period of time, most of the components today are from other suppliers. So, for example, in India, it does not make sense if you have a large manufacturing plant, say in the north, to get your tires from the south and then take a set of tires, 4 tires of a vehicle or 5 tires for a vehicle, all the way up north, fit it into the car, and then ship the car back with those 4 tires, 5 tires back. So it does not make economic sense. It's not very efficient. So what we are doing is we are kind of designing the vehicle in a very modular fashion on the lines of IKEA furniture, so that we can actually, get it, make it easy to assemble in micro factories. So you don't need large, assembly lines. So ours is a platform-based assembly, design that we have for a vehicle. So this would reduce cost. This would actually increase a lot of opportunities, spread across the country. You don't need to have one factory only in one location. It can be every state can have a factory of their own.
So, for the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, or for micro businesses out there who are listening to this interview, and if they are interested in being part of your micro factory revolution that you're trying to bring in, can you help us understand what would be a basic infrastructure required, and what would be amount of investment that would go into setting up a micro factory?
So, broadly at this stage, we can say that, a micro factory is similar to a large automobile workshop. So you have today large automobile workshops that take care of all repairs and maintenance of vehicles, right from body work to paint job to, replacement of parts. So what we would be requiring is facilities like a large, automobile workshop. So it's based on bays. It's not based on an assembly line. So depending on the number of bays, you can kind of manufacture the vehicle. It's dependent on the number of bays. So the more number of bays, then more number of vehicles can be manufactured. So the kind of investment is similar to the investment that goes into a large, automobile workshop. We can't reveal the figures right now. I mean, we need to still get our workings and all in order. But it's something that many more entrepreneurs like dealers today of automobile dealers can easily switch into getting into becoming a micro factory, owner.
For somebody who's already into manufacturing of, may not be automobiles, maybe railway wagons or any other equipment, would that be easier for them to be your micro factory?
When we talk about micro factory, it's about sourcing all the components like a SKD or a CKD, semi knocked down or completely knocked down. And because electric vehicles have lesser number of components, and we are also designing the vehicle in a very modular fashion, so our SKD kits would help you to assemble the vehicle without too much of manufacturing at the location. So when we say micro factories, it is more of actually assembly plant rather than a factory, but we call it a micro factory. There are other suppliers who we partner with to manufacture most of the components. So there we are looking at large suppliers, who already supply to other manufacturers, because our design is based on the philosophy of design from manufacturing, not design for manufacturing. So we try and use most of our components off the shelf. Of course, there would be some components that are tailor-made for our, vehicle, because our vehicle has a very unique design. It has a very modular design. But the core components like motors and batteries, electric drivetrains, most of them are sourced from other suppliers.
You also talk about, circular economy principle. Do you want to talk about that? How is that going to impact the final cost of vehicle on the ground?
Yeah. So that's again a very good question, because when we look at vehicle, there is, bill of materials is just one part of the cost, but then, a lot of other cost goes into other aspects, of the vehicle. And for us, we are also inspired by the aerospace industry when it comes to, modular design and assembly and all of that. Lightweighting of vehicles and things like that. So traditionally, most automobile businesses and dealerships made a lot of money out of service and spares. Selling of the vehicle did not give them much money, but service and spares gave them a lot more money. So their profits mostly came from service and spares. But with electric vehicles, maintenance costs, maintenance issues are very less. There's hardly any maintenance that you need to do for an electric vehicle. The motors last for 100,000 kilometers, and there is no oil change and filter changes. Even brake pads don't wear out very quick when you have regenerative braking, because then you don't use the brake pads so much. So there's very, very low maintenance in electric vehicles. So when you look at circular economy principles, we are looking at traditionally the automobile. If you go to the workshop, they just replace parts. Anything goes wrong, they just take out one entire set and replace it with another set, and then you don't know what happens to that component that they have taken out. So repairs is not happening. It is only replacement that is happening, and that has been the business model. So we are looking at how we could repair. We are looking at how we can repurpose. We are looking at a very modular design so that even the vehicle can be upgraded very easily. We're looking at components, which are brand agnostic. That means, we can replace one set of batteries with another manufacturer's set of batteries in that sense. Tesla today is, of course, doing it. The batteries that go into their China, vehicles are quite different from the batteries that go into their American vehicles, right from a chemistry perspective itself. So we foresee that, a vehicle is going to be similar to manufacturing of electronics and things like that. But again, what they focus on is on replacement. We are looking at repair and reuse. So we are building a lot of circular economic principles. We're also looking at finally selling miles, not vehicles. Today, most manufacturers look at a lifespan and they expect you to change the vehicle very frequently. But ultimately, I think there is more money to be made selling miles than selling vehicles. So we are building a vehicle to last very long.
Is that selling the miles philosophy stems from the fact that you're targeting Southeast Asia, Africa, especially the subcontinent?
Yeah, and we are also focused on the fleet segment. So the fleet segment, they put in a lot of miles per vehicle. Unlike passenger cars, where most of the time, 90% of the time, the vehicle is not being used, but the fleet segment, 90% of the time, the vehicle is in use. So offering them, miles rather than the vehicle, I think would be also beneficial for everyone in the ecosystem, because most driver owners can't afford a vehicle. Today, most of them rent out a vehicle on a daily basis. So we are trying to keep the rental cost low, where the fuel cost is anyway much lesser. So the amount of profit that a driver, would make at the end of the day would be a lot more than what he's currently able to make with petrol, diesel vehicles.
Coming to your batteries, what you're proposing is that it will be a swappable battery. So basically, people can switch, just remove the battery, replace with another one, and then start moving. How easy is it going to be for a single? Because mostly in in fleet segment, what you see is there's a single driver. Probably there's no other helper. So how are you working that out?
Yeah. So we have a very unique vehicle architecture, in this segment. It is a fixed plus swappable battery architecture. So it's not entirely swappable. It's a fixed plus swappable battery. And we also have a solar roof. So we have multiple charging options, and the fixed battery is of a much larger capacity. The swappable batteries are modular. So you can have, depending on the kind of mileage you need, you can have multiple batteries. So our batteries would be similar to the batteries that go into three-wheelers, for instance. So standardization hasn't yet happened in the market, but we hope that standardization would happen, and then we would be able to use batteries that go into three-wheelers, two-wheelers, three-wheelers into our vehicle. So there is some IP, so we can't reveal too much at this stage. But basically, it is a swappable battery that can be easily handled by someone. So it's not something that would require automation and things like that. So this would be something that anyone can just pull out and plug in.
So Christy, you have spent some time as you've been a vice president marketing and business development with U2. How's that experience helped you in your current venture?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I've been an entrepreneur all along, but I just spent about 3 months, on an assignment with U2 to launch the product in the market, the ride-hailing product in the market. It has given me a lot of insights. One, what I realized is that the ride-hailing operators, it's a tech business, but the vehicle, has no tech built into the vehicle. And they're dependent on a mobile phone, for the tech in the vehicle. And then if the mobile is switched off or the mobile is taken away from the vehicle, you don't even know where the vehicle is. So GPS tracking and all of that, if we wanted to, incorporate it into the vehicle, we realized that large manufacturers, then tend to make the warranty void. So even though we were ordering a lot of vehicles and we told the manufacturers we wanted the GPS built into the vehicle, they said, no, if you attach it, then the warranty will become void. We also wanted to tap into the ODB port and get data directly from the vehicle, and that was not possible. So I realized that, there's a big opportunity because ride-hailing operators, the business is expanding, not only in India, but globally. But there is no vehicle purpose-built for their business. And if you look deeply at it, you'll also realize that even for the taxi segment or fleet segment, there are no vehicles built for taxi or fleet segment. Basically, because large manufacturers don't want their brand to be sullied by being seen in the taxi business. So the only taxi that has been built for purpose built for the business is the London Black Cab. That's the only vehicle that is built as a taxi. But otherwise, most of the vehicles that are used as a taxi are passenger cars. So, and they're not very efficient. They're not built for purpose. So that's the reason why we said, yeah, let's build a vehicle which is purpose built for the ride-hailing operators, purpose built for the fleet segment, a plug-and-play vehicle with all the tech built into the vehicle. And so the insights that I had from you two was basically that if your product is not good, whatever you do, then the unit economics is not going to work out. So using a passenger car and trying to run it as a taxi, and the unit economics were not really working out. But if you have a vehicle built for the taxi segment, then the unit economics can work out. Two, we are also building a multi-purpose vehicle. That means during peak hours, you can use it for passenger transport. During non-peak hours, it can be used for goods transport, for deliveries of food deliveries and things like that. We are also designing the vehicle such that even wheelchair passengers can be taken in the vehicle. So during non-peak hours, they can use it for other business opportunities. So like that, we have the insight has been that you need to have a vehicle that is purpose built for the ride-hailing segment, and that's not there in the market.
So coming to the launch of SOORYA, when are we going to see the launch? Or when is it going to hit Indian roads very
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah. So it's to be honest, when I started off, I didn't expect it to take so long. It's now 4 years I've been working on this product. But I also realized that it's if you want to get the product right, and then you need to have the right components, you need to have the right tech, you need to you need to build a vehicle for an ecosystem. And we realized for a fleet segment, you can't afford downtime for charging. So we needed to solve that problem. And then fast charging is not going to be a possibility in the developing world, because having access to high voltage power is going to be a challenge in the developing world. So we had to then come out with a very unique vehicle architecture, like I mentioned, a fixed plus swappable battery vehicle architecture. So that has taken us time. We were also looking at low voltage, and today there are low voltage, electric motors and drivetrains available in the market. So today most of the tech is available, and in 18 to 24 months we can have a prototype built, and we can launch the vehicle in another 3 to 6 months after that. So we are ready to launch the vehicle in 18 to 24 months. But of course, the pandemic has come, and that's bringing in a bit of uncertainty to whatever timelines we have set for ourselves. We didn't expect lockdowns to happen. I've not traveled in the last 18 months, so it's all these are actually challenges for us. But hopefully now with the vaccines and vaccinations that are happening, I think that we would be able to handle the pandemic. Things would open up, travel restrictions would go away, and I think in 18 to 24 months we should be able to launch our vehicle.
Are you in talks with Indian government or state governments to collaborate with them for your vehicle?
We have got some interest from some state governments, but we are not at that stage where we want to now interact with them directly. Today, of course, it's a very favorable environment. Almost all state governments have an EV policy, and all of them want to welcome you into their state. So we would keep our options open, and but we are already talking to large manufacturers and other suppliers, and so the ecosystem is kind of getting built. And when we launch, I think it would be much easier for us to launch in the market.
That brings me to the next obvious question, which is how are you going to compete with the likes of Tatas and Mahindras who are well entrenched, good distribution network, and they also are working on their own electric version?
Yeah. So that's again a good question. The Tatas and the Mahindras, are definitely pioneers in the market, have well established in the market, and but they have a wide range of vehicles in their portfolio. So the vehicle that we are looking at is right at the end or at the bottom of their portfolio. So Tata also tried Tata Nano, and then they gave it up. Mahindras are focused more on the SUVs. Tata's have launched electric vehicles, which are mid-size vehicles in the market, and so we don't foresee too much of competition at the lower end of the market that we are looking at. Two is the way the vehicle is designed and engineered, and the fact that it is going to be built in micro factories would enable us to have some advantages over large manufacturers. So in this affordable vehicle space, most large manufacturers are actually not too keen or too interested in this space. They're not too keen also in the taxi segment because they don't want their brand name to be sullied by being seen in the taxi segment. So there might be some competition, and we can also have cooperation. So that means we can also cooperate and compete at the same time. We are in touch. We are in talks with one of them, and let's see how it goes. But we would compete on design, on engineering, on the price point. We intend to be very competitive in the market, but we're looking at global markets. So it's not just the Indian market that we are focused on.
And very important question for somebody who's still in the prototyping stage or design stage. How are you funded?
So we have been self-funded because we didn't want to get into early funding until we are kind of very clear and sure about our product that we are going to launch in the market. So there are two ways in which you can go about product development. Unfortunately, I see most companies jumping into prototyping immediately. And then we realize that many companies, EV startups have, built prototypes, and then they find that, there is no product market fit. And in Singapore, for example, Dyson invested a lot of money, building their own prototype. 700, 800 million they spent building a prototype, and then realizing that there is no product market fit. So we focused on product market fit right from the beginning. So we studied the market, we studied the tech that is there in the market. We studied the ecosystem that goes in, that is there, that needs to be built. We studied the ride-hailing, ride operators. So we did a lot of focus on getting the product market fit right, and that entailed also having a very unique vehicle architecture, having a very modular design, innovating also in manufacturing. So there is a lot of innovation that we are actually bringing to the table. And now that we are getting into prototype stage, that's when we would need funds, and that's why now we are kind of open to partnerships and investors coming on board. We already have a couple of large corporates from Japan and India showing some interest in us. So we are putting together a syndicate and then looking at raising funds.
As a entrepreneur who's building from the scratch, what would be your gyan that you would share with aspiring entrepreneurs?
See, the automobile industry is a very, very challenging business. I've spent 4 years of my time already, in this, and we have only come to the stage of, getting into prototype development. So it is not for everyone. It is not, unless for me, it is also that, I'm very, it's purpose driven. We want to bring in, affordable, clean transport in the emerging markets. So that is also, every day when I wake up, that's the purpose. That's the reason why, I'm at it every day. Today, there are a lot of women folk that are getting into the workforce, and to see them all cramped and, not having proper transport to work. It's very, I would say inhuman for someone to get to work in a very crushed kind of, transport, like today what we notice in buses or in trains. So how can we provide slightly more comfortable transport to people to work and back? That has been our motivation. Um, so it's a very challenging business if unless you're very highly motivated, unless you're purpose driven, unless your other is very well funded. Yeah, even large companies that are well funded or large startups that are well funded are still not able to launch in the market. So product market fit, I think, is also very important. And having the right partnerships, I think that is also very key. Today, we actually leverage a lot on partners, on suppliers to, to build our product. And two is we are not building everything from scratch. So we are not building our own batteries. We're not building our own motors. So this enables us to actually reach this particular stage. But if I, for example, have to build my own motor, then there's a lot of R&D that goes into it. There's a lot of testing, certification, validation. A lot goes into all of those areas. So we are not focused on performance. We are focused on efficiency. So companies that are focused on performance, like we are building a two-wheeler and it is focused on performance, 0 to 100 in so many seconds or whatever it is, then everything has to be integrated. Then you need to be kind of, building a lot of the components yourself. But we are looking at efficiency. What is the cost per kilometer per seat? And we are trying to bring in a vehicle with the lowest cost per kilometer per seat. So that would increase profitability for everyone. So it is challenging. And unless you focus on getting the right product market fit, and, it is definitely a big challenge.
Finally, coming to our important question, which we always ask our guests for their opinion. MyServe TV is a channel for startups and entrepreneurs like you. What are your thoughts about the channel?
I think it is a very good initiative. I think, and it's also at the right time because it's the electric vehicle industry has been there now in existence for at least a decade. Or if you take Tesla as a starting point, and they spent over a decade before they have now come to this stage. And from now, it is going to be rapid acceleration of the industry. And in the next decade or two, there are already 1 billion vehicles on the road. So to just replace 1 billion vehicles with electric vehicles, that's a huge opportunity. So I think having content, having a channel like yours, focusing on in this space, aggregating content, I think there is a big opportunity in that. And I've seen quite a few of them come up, and it's like how disruption is happening in the automobile industry. Disruption is also happening in media. And, I think it's a very good initiative because at the end of the day, it's not just electric vehicles. It is also about, clean tech is about, clean air. It's about, clean energy. It's all integrated. So the only way we can actually leave a better world for the future generations is to switch to electric and to switch to renewable energy. And so I wish you all the very best in what you do. And, I think it's a very good initiative at the right time. And, if you're able to aggregate a lot of content, I think then that would become a go-to, a source for content, for information, for knowledge, for everyone, because everyone today are looking for more information in this space.
Thank you, Mr. Christie. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to hosting you on some of our panel talks in and around electric vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Major. Wishing you all the best.
Thank you.